So I'm starting to assemble my ERCF. I wanted to show some things real quick. These parts are described in the original ERCF manual, and on certain pages it tells you where to install heatset inserts. This little video, I'm just going to show you where I put them in. I'll try to take some pictures. Most of the original holes kind of match up with these SturdyBunny counterparts, but the parts are different, so they're not always going to have holes that are going to be have heatset inserts. Like in the original parts, these holes over here get inserts, but in these SturdyBunny variants of this part, those holes are not the right size for the heatset inserts. For the most part, you're going to know what's going to take a heatset insert because the holes have a specific size, and you can kind of eyeball it. But again, look at the manual. Anyways, little video. These are the parts that I put. You can see where I put them in. Just wanted to record that, and I'll try to take pictures or take stills from this little video. The kit that I'm using came with a bunch of hardware. I'm at the stage now where I'm going to want these tiny little bearings. And then, in addition to that, I think I'm going to need a micro switch. Here's that micro switch. Again, I'm following the instructions for in the original ERCF manual. They're pretty much applicable to this SturdyBunny variant or mod, or fork really. To mount the end stop switch, the instructions say to use these tiny little M2 screws, and my kit does have these tiny little M2 screws. If you have a lever on your micro switch, have the lever point down. If you don't have the lever and just a little nub right there, then you flip it around. All of this is documented in the ERCF manual. I'm just following along. It looks like it taps in nicely. I'll do the side first. I think that's the best thing. Looks good. It's not lining up. Let me loosen that other screw so that I can move the switch around a little bit. And then hopefully this screw will line up with its hole. There we go. Looks good. Don't want to over tighten and strip the plastic. Good and tight. Looks like it's just right. I'm looking at it to see if there's one face, one side that looks different than the other. It actually looks symmetrical to me. So I don't think it makes a difference which way I put it in. Time to put this bearing in. My kit comes with 5 of these bearings. I do have some extra, but not sure if I'm going to need them. Lay it over there, line it up, push down. You know, I'm going to use something to push down on that. Yeah, that feels good. I'm going to get a rod, slide it through, and see how it feels, see if it's straight and true and not cocked to one side. Here's the D shaft. You can tell that it's not, that bearing's not straight. I'll just push it in, line it up, make sure this looks good. Looks pretty good there. I'll rotate this. Feels good. I think if it's off a tiny bit, it'll align. A little bit more this way. Yeah, looks good. It also accepts one of these. I guess drop it in. Do the same process. Line it up. Find something to press it. It's a suitable diameter. Press it in square. It feels pretty good this way. Again, I'm going to double check. I'll get the D shaft. Take a look at that. See if it looks straight. There's a little bit of, a tiny bit of play in the bearing and the shaft. Seems normal, not, given the length of this. And it looks straight, from what I can tell. Okay, I'll call that a winner. Rotate that around. Instructions talk about getting this pulley set up for your motor. I'm using a NEMA 17 for my spare parts bin. The kit that I have comes with a NEMA 14, but I've heard that if you can use a NEMA 17 for the stronger torque that it can provide. There's the flat. Grub screws were already in the pulley. My kit came with these pulleys and these belts, including this one. In the tools folder of SturdyBunny is a part that you can make. It's a little measuring gauge. You're going to put it up like this, line it up like this. Anyways, let's get that flat on the shaft. Let's get one of the grub screws lined up so it faces it. Finger tight. Not even finger tight. Just enough so that way it's not wobbling around too much. Alright, there you go. Alright, I can move it up and down. Line it up. Double check before I tighten the other one. Looks good. Should use Loctite. So you don't have problems later on. I have blue Loctite from when I work on cars. Don't use the red. The red's like the really long-lasting stuff, like the semi-permanent one. Alright, it looks good. Say to use M3x16. My kit comes with a bag of those. Also use washers. So I'll grab about 3 of these. The directions say I have the connector facing like this. You're going to see over here these little holes. You're going to put a zip tie in here to hold the cable and tie it down. I'll start with the one that acts as a pivot. That one doesn't need a washer. It's countersunk. And the instructions say to use an M3x12 for this one. And then for the two that it's going to pivot on, to use an M3x16. So alright, M3x12, I'm going to look for one of those. Alright, I found them. My kit seems to come with three of those M3x12s. Stick it through, it's countersunk. Sticks out a little bit. Alright, I'm going to back off a little bit. Make sure it swivels. Looks like I'm set. Okay. I need to install a bearing in there. The instructions say it's going to stick out. That one goes in pretty easy. And sticks out a tiny bit. It's not flush. Alright, that's good. I'll set this one aside. Something to consider when you go with SturdyBunny is my kit did not have these little T-nuts. These are M3 T-nuts. I have a few of these around. Not much left actually, but should have plenty for this build. So make sure you get that. Now, my kit did come with a bunch of these M3x8. Pretty sure these are 8. M3x8 nuts or screws. M3x8, 7, and let's call them 8, M3x8. So I'm using them for the T-nuts that I have. You're going to want to populate this piece with the T-nuts. You can have your 2020 extrusion. How long is this supposed to be? There's a lot of conflicting stuff about that. I'm using the Thumper blocks, which are 21 millimeter wide. So those Thumper blocks are a little thinner, 1.75 millimeters thinner than Triple-Decky parts. So the SturdyBunny says, and these are 21 millimeters, SturdyBunny says for the number of ports or blocks that you want, multiply 21 by the number of blocks that you want and then add 45. So I think that's like 171. But someone has made a post a few times saying that 184 roughly, 7 1/4 inches, or about 184 millimeters, is what you want. And they'll work fine because then you can even put a little cap on the end. I'm not exactly sure. So I just thought, you know what? Rather too long than too short. So this is 184 millimeters. Alright, get your T-nuts, put them in. This is that piece I showed earlier where I installed the micro switch, the end stop. I had already done a dry fit on here. I'm going to loosen this up just a little bit so I can get these in. Slide them in. If you can, get the T-nuts already swiveled in place so that way they're opposing, or they're this direction rather than this way. And it looks like I go in through here. It's okay if you don't, or if you can't, if it's too awkward, just get them in somehow. You do want to make sure that they turn in place though. Alright, so what I mean by that is, you can see this one. See how it turns? That's what you want. You want it like that. That way it's fully captured and it's clamping down correctly. Alright, let's tighten that one up a little bit. Do the same here. Make sure it's turned. It's good. Do it all the way around. This one needs to turn. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. That's what we want. This one already done. We got that one and that one. Alright, you want to make sure it's square. What I mean by square is this can tilt a little bit this way or this way. Just squeeze down so that the top is against this face of the extrusion. If you're not sure, you can always get a square. Alright, that looks good. Tighten this down. Make sure it's pushed up all the way over. So I'll try to keep a running tab of the extra parts that you're going to need when you go to SturdyBunny and you're using a pre-existing kit like the one that I have here. My kit, like I said, did not have T-nuts. You're going to need those. Over tighten like I did here. You see it's cracking already. And over here. I'm going to live with that. I can always reprint this. I'm still doing a test on a bunch of things. I like to do that. I don't mind rebuilding when I've done something for the first time. I also will mix and match parts, so I'm going to leave this be for now, see how that goes. But I'll keep that in my mind. ERCF had you have inserts on these two holes. SturdyBunny does not make these big enough for inserts. I'm not sure why. Because of that, I'm going to leave it alone. The next part you're supposed to do is you're supposed to get the latch, and that's what these screws are. And I've got my bearings. The latch should swivel out. It'll grip, it'll clip. So I'm assuming since these aren't screwing into anything, they're going to be captured. And I think they're going to be captured by the gear. gear will go on top, and I'm hoping that it'll keep those screw heads from sliding out. Next step is preparing that big pulley. Called it the gear, but it's really a pulley. So let me see, let me find some things here. Let me get a 5mm bolt or Chicago screw, something to hold it. You're going to pull off the top part of this pulley. Comes right off. Going to insert that into that printed pulley. You're going to have your shaft lined up. My kit does come with the necessary button head screws that you need for this. We're going to put this gear, this pulley, onto the D shaft. The instructions say you're supposed to use little spacers, bearing spacers. They do have a step to them. They're wider on this side. Think of it as having a curve on there. Be mindful of how you have those. The directions tell you what to do. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Put the shaft in. I'm going to find there's the gear. So now insert the D shaft through the two bearings. Got your little spacer there. It's going to go up against that. Okay. Tiny wobble. I'll put up with it for now. We'll see what happens. I'm going to make sure this is parallel. It has a little play. I think it'll be fine. I'm going to pull it out a little bit. I'm going to make sure I slide the belt in. before I push that pulley into place. That way I'm not trying to fight to put it in, to slip it in there. The motor's going to go here soon. If you look closely, there's an insert right here. I should have screwed this in before I slid the gear into place, but I can get to it from there. Hey, this is future me. I wanted to point out, I made a big mistake here. Not only should I have screwed that in where I pointed before I put the gear in, I should have also ran the end stop wire and the motor wire to a point right where that extrusion is at the very tip, very close to where I'm pointing. There's a little gap there. Those wires should have been run first, and that's going to cost me because I'm going to have to redo it, and I'm going to show you that later on. But for now, we're going to roll with it so that way this doesn't take any longer. Plus, it's hard to edit. Looks like I need a small screw. One of these M3x8s should be fine. Maybe smaller. Look at that. It's going to have to recess. You know, I'm actually going to go ahead and get like an M3x6. There's an M3x6. I feel more comfortable using that. Tiny bit more. That's good. Don't want to overdo it. Then we're going to put the motor assembly. Uh-oh, my belt's slipping out. Okay, there we go. Let's go ahead and push this down. I slid it down so that way it's at its closest spot. Hey, this is future me again. So after this point, I did a bunch of stuff that I had to undo. So basically, imagine this motor assembly and the gear and the shaft being pulled out, and then I'm going to redo everything, which is what you're going to see next. Here in the lower left, you can see that the gear and the D shaft and the motor assembly have been pulled out. So this is where I'm going to continue, where I undo my bad mistake earlier. With the 2020 installed, or this part installed on the 2020 extrusion, you're going to be connecting this piece. But before you do that, make sure you place the micro switch, the end stop switch wires in this little gap. You're going to sandwich it. You also, though, you want to add your motor wire for your NEMA 17 motor over here. You can also put that over there. You want these sandwiched in between. This will make more sense in just a little bit. Go ahead and put your other piece there. You're going to want to use, you could try to use the M3x8 that your kit comes with, but I recommend you don't. Get a smaller one. Use an M3x6 if you can. You're going to go ahead and tighten that down. Okay. And again, you want those wires to be in between. Alright, to put the rest of this together, let's see. We're going to use some M3x20. You're going to put these little latches on here. They don't screw in. There are no inserts for these screws to go into. Instead, they're kind of just going to act as pins for this latch. Make sure they're flush. Future me again. So I really don't like that these screws are not like screwing into an insert. I wish the other side just had like a smaller holes so that these small screws could just self-tap into the plastic, because nothing's going to keep them from backing out, and that's going to be a problem. I'm living with it, but there's probably something I'm missing, or a change needs to be made. On this side, you're going to have another latch, and those you're going to use these much larger, I don't know how large these are. These are M3 by 40. Alright, so let's connect the gearbox together. We'll put the latches on in a moment, the other latch on in a moment. Carefully get your gearbox subassembly. Hold it together. Drive your D shaft through those bearings. Get those large M3 by 40s. Start to drive them home, but don't go all the way. Those long M3 by 40s go here. You're going to use an M3 by 12 for this hole right here. You can go ahead and tighten that one down, not super tight. Get your latch, just like this one over here. You're going to place it over there. Now you can go ahead and push these screws in. You might need to actually tighten them. They may not push through. There we go. It's lined up. Now we have this screw. This one you need to source yourself. This, I think, is going to be an M3 by 25. And that's because, again, it's countersunk. Let's hold it up here. There's a heat set insert right there, a heated insert. So yeah, M3 by 25. I don't think a 30 would work. 20 is going to be a little short. Your mileage may vary, but this is what I'm using. Alright, remember how I said those wires need to be sandwiched in there? That's because these heat set inserts, they're going to go like this. Your wires are going to run through that little gap right there. If you hadn't done that, like I hadn't done the first time around, you'd have to take it apart or run your wires some other way. But take my advice, run those wires first. I guess I could put this in now. Let's do it. Let's get some M3 by 8s. The motor wire is conveniently held into place with a zip tie. You're going to find a zip tie. This one's already been used. But you're going to feed it through here. And you'll be able to tie that wire down. Very nice. Your latches, they're going to grab the other part, but they'll click into place here. Alright, this assembly looks pretty good. Hear a little noise. I think it's the pulley rubbing.